Welcome to the Get Better Project, where your host Joe Bauer interviews the world's top fitness, endurance, and strength athletes to figure out what has propelled them to the top of their game.
Let's be great. Let's be great.
Listen, learn, and start getting better today. Here we go.
Welcome to the Get Better Project, where I'm excited to have Guinness World Record Speedgolfer, New York Times bestselling author, former pro triathlete, and host of the Get Over Yourself podcast, Brad Kearns, on the show. Brad, how you doing today?
I'm getting better, man.
Yeah.
I'm getting better. I'm so honored to be on the show. Getting better, getting over ourselves. What more can we ask for? And we've connected on the back end, man, on the podcast strategy session. So now here we are live to the listeners, and I can't wait.
Yeah, man. Well, I've got to tell you, I'm like fumbling up on the intro because you've got so many accomplishments that you've had in your life. All the people that I usually talk to are like, well, they're a CrossFit Games athlete, and that's what they got. So I'm excited to dive in.
I might trade like some of those self-reported accolades for CrossFit Games. When I saw that thing live, man, those guys were it was phenomenal. And I remember being embarrassed because the first thing I saw was the muscle up biathlon, where you do 10 muscle ups and then you jump off the rings and you run a quarter mile around the stadium and then back to the rings. And these guys, I was right on the running course watching these guys run by, and some of them were like barely running, and I ribbed Mark Sisson. We were both watching there, and I'm like, what's up with these guys? Can't they, that they could barely run a quarter mile? And he goes, Brad, have you ever done a muscle up? And I'm like, no. He goes, they're pretty tough. And so I kind of just let that sink in. And then we're over at the expo, and sure enough, there's a display booth where they have the rings and you can try a muscle up. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll see what this is all about. And oh my God, I could struggle and barely did. I don't think the judges would have qualified me, but like doing a single muscle up is a major. I know you have training, you can help people get their muscle ups dialed in, but I was like, okay, much respect to the players of the CrossFit Games, and I now know why they were jogging instead of sprinting their 200-meter lap. So opening up a bigger perspective of fitness for sure.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, holy smokes, we could talk about the things that these guys do is freaking crazy. It's absolutely insane. But I'd like to learn more about you, Brad. I want to know, where you grew up, how you grew up. Like, I'm interested in knowing these things about people that, were you just the way that you are? Were you somebody that just liked to get things done? Or was there a person or circumstance in your life as you were growing up that caused you to want to be, entrepreneurial and an athlete and all this? Because there's a lot of people out there that don't have that, or, they would like to have it. So I'd love to hear.
Man, that's a good question. I'm letting that soak in. That's pretty heavy. It opens up like a can of worms for me. I don't know about the next person asked that, but maybe it was like my second and third grade teachers that were sending me out of the room because I was so disruptive, and I was realizing that I was, already a misfit, or I had these strange, unusual goals that weren't lined up with, just following and signing up for the baseball team and the football team and going through the motions like the rest of the pack. So, I had these dreams of being an athlete that started when I was really young, and I saw the Olympics when I was 77 years old, 1972 Olympics, and I decided to start training for the Olympics after that. So that's like an early memory of my, passion for sports and competition. And sure enough, I was a little guy growing up. So I think those are, forming these life experiences kind of shape your destiny. I skipped a grade. So not only was I a little guy, I was the youngest guy. So I was younger and smaller than my peers. And I dreamed of being a quarterback in the NFL or perhaps a guard in the NBA. And when you go to a giant public high school in Los Angeles, you very soon realize that you're in so far over your head that they might not even let you into the game to watch because you're too small and not athletic enough, So when I got to that level where I kind of, transitioned from the recreational leagues at the city park to trying to even make it onto the high school squad, that was something that pushed me right into the endurance sports. And that was something that I was really well adapted to from the very beginning. I was always the guy that ran after the ball if it went over the fence. And so I had some early success at the high school level as a distance runner. And again, like most of us, getting into a positive, supportive peer group is a really big deal and can shape your life in many ways. And so, I hung out with these guys, Steve Deitch and Steve Cobrain and Todd Pearsons. We just gathered in Los Angeles, the reunion of the running buddies from decades ago, and talked about the old stories. And you get back together with your buddies, and Deitch is going, yeah, so on lap 3, I dropped a 63 quarter and got a good gap on you guys. And so everybody's remembering these races from 37 years ago, like they were yesterday. But these guys were really focused, really driven. They ended up to be exceptional students and getting doctorate degrees and all that sort of thing. So I was in with a good mix of really high performing distance runners, and that allowed me to get to a high level in high school. I was 9th in the state of California state finals in the mile. I was 12th in the National Junior Olympics when I was 16. And so that was, the fast track to a career in endurance sports. I thought I was going to be a fabulous Division I college runner, and I went off to UC Santa Barbara, and it was an absolute disaster. And bringing up this part of the story is important because it helps shape my values and my direction as a coach and later as a professional on the triathlon circuit, because I basically went up there with this intense competitive drive and this deep desire to be the best I could be as a runner. My self-esteem is attached to my identity as a runner because I'm just a kid and I had success in high school, and that was fun, and it was nurturing to feel good about myself rather than feel like the little dude that ran after the ball. But when you have a misplaced competitive intensity, where you just get up and let those basic drives come out, and you just try to race and challenge your teammates every single day in practice to look good to the coach or whatever your goal is inside, that can bring you down and cause you to make bad decisions and struggle and suffer and get injured and burnt out. And that's what happened to me in college. So I had to learn the hard way, just pounding my head against the wall day after day and falling into overtraining pattern and, obsessive behavior about running, wanting to get up and not miss my mileage every day and count my mileage in my logbook. And all that stuff put me basically into the student health center to get a bunch of tests and find out why I was exhausted every day. So I had shin splints, stress fracture. I had an 8-week bout of mono where I was laying in bed, and that was my running career going up in flames. But the good thing is, at the same time when I had these serious running injuries, I could go and pursue this exciting new sport of triathlon. So that started in college, and that led me on the path to eventually joining the professional circuit and competing for 9 years as a pro triathlete. Just the recurring injuries in running.
Yeah. So what do you think it is about people, and where did you find the shift that you went from, I'm trying to compete and be this badass in college versus like doing it for another reason, or like trying to find the best out of yourself? Because I feel like a lot of people have that like, I want to beat the next person. I want to beat the next person. And I'm trying to think back if I ever had that. I'm sure I did at some point. Like there was some version of Joe that was like that. But as I've matured, I feel like I at least try my best to find the best out of myself. And it's cool if, you rank good on the scoreboard, but I don't know. I'm looking back at myself and I can't really figure out when that happened, but it sounds like maybe you had a clear indication of when that happened.
Geez, man, it happens every day because we have to get over ourselves every single day. And I picked the name from my podcast because, I sincerely feel like that was the key for me to succeed as an athlete, is to get over myself and stop being so self-important about it and realize the world doesn't revolve around what place I finished in the race, and my identity and my character, is far deeper than just, towing the line as an athlete and having that be the end all, such that I'm snapping at my girlfriend when we're walking to the race start because she forgot my blue bag, and you see athletes like that every day when they're all caught up and, everything's about them, and you have these flawed mentalities playing out on the race course. And that's the guy I didn't want to be. And at my weakest points was when I made those bad decisions, got injured. I mean, anyone raise your hand listening if you've had a stress fracture. And if you had, That is the most stupid, idiotic injury you can ever imagine getting, because you get a stress fracture by repeated bouts of mild to increasingly severe pain every single time you head out there, and you keep going for some reason, ignoring or pushing through this pain or taking ibuprofen or whatever you're doing until you crack the bone due to the repeated impact trauma. And so that's kind of the ultimate example of being off the rails and so far into yourself that you can't even make reasonable decisions to rest when your body should rest. And so at what point does that happen? Those failures and setbacks help me learn more than perhaps even the success, although I don't want to make that cliche statement, because you can learn a lot from succeeding too. And one of the things you can learn is that you don't want to wrap up your identity in your success either, because I think what we see today is the leading celebrities and athletic heroes of life crashing and burning in real life every single day. There's another story of ridiculous behavior and stuff that makes them think that they're above the moral values of society. So when you can kind of have a distance and cultivate a great competitive intensity, but at the same time release your attachment to the outcome, that's what I characterize as the ideal peak performance state. And boy, it's tough to lock into that mindset and stay there, because we get so many measuring and judging forces every day in the world. And we have this messaging, even in our game, Joe, in the podcast scene, where, there's a podcast called Slay the Day, man. And you wake up and listen to it and you get your empowering morning routine, and then the host is so grateful because they just reached their 17 million follower, and you can be as cool as I am if you just follow my 12 tips to peak performance for $99. And we're hearing this stuff and it's floating around in our brain, and it's really easy to feel inferior, to feel like not enough. You pull up on your social media and you see people, toasting you in Hawaii while you're sitting in your stupid cubicle, working for a frustrating boss. And that part, when we get down and discouraged, that sets us back from, being the best we can be and making the best decisions. So I want to, I say this to my kids all the time: do not get discouraged in life ever. You can get angry, frustrated, inspired to do something better, to change course and all that. But when you let life beat you down, that's when you've wrapped your self-esteem in the outcome, and you need to break free from that mindset and realize that it's not all about you. And yes, it's okay to quit a job that you hate, because the life's still going to go on, and the paper route's going to be delivered by somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, two questions still. Was there a spot that you felt like, or thing that you felt like you did in order to get it to switch? Like, so that listeners could be like, oh man, I'm in this CrossFit gym, or I'm running this triathlon, and I've been getting motivated by, beating these people. And I've been saying these things. I beat you, what, I hear that and I cringe. I'm like, man, is that your motivation? But what happened? What was that thing? So that's the first question. And the other question is for your, have you seen your kids? Are your kids, as you are trying to mold them in this direction, is it working for them?
Ooh, good question. Yeah. So the first part, I think, when you really spin out and realize that you've, let yourself down, you've gone down the wrong path, and it's starting to get pretty extreme, the pain and suffering and the frustration, that's when you can break free. And I identify a few of those checkpoints along the road. And one of them was the running injury, as I talked about, where, I'm sitting there as a college student feeling sad and sorry for myself, rather than enjoying the day and enjoying the other opportunities that, college offers. And one of them was to, get on my bike and start pursuing a different goal that wasn't so frustrating, to get out of that negative pattern of going to the running workouts and getting injured. So actually, I got the diagnosis of a stress fracture down in Los Angeles. That's 100 miles from Santa Barbara, where I attended school. My home is Los Angeles. That's where I'm from. I don't know if I ever answered that question back when you asked me. Oh, yeah. I said I was going to the big high school in LA. So I, on that occasion, borrowed my brother's bicycle. He's 6'3.5". I'm 5'10 3/4", and I got this bicycle and got a ride up to campus And I vowed that, the following weekend I would ride my bicycle back down to my house, to my hometown, 104 miles. And so that was my foray away from the, dysfunctional running experience and into the world of triathlon. I'd never ridden that far. I just got the maps out and I said, I'm going to do it. And so that was sort of like a breakthrough experience where when I finished that ride and got home, it was my birthday, was the occasion of the ride. And boy, that was a great day in my life because I said, you know what, I'm going to go for it. I had a great time. I love this new sport. I'm going to see what it's all about. Then I went to the bike shop and bought a proper bicycle that was for my size and all that stuff. And so, those kind of stories. Another one was, graduating college and then getting hired by the world's largest accounting firm as a staff auditor. So I went from this wonderful outdoor lifestyle at UCSB where I was riding my bike around, doing triathlons, swimming in the ocean, surfing the waves, maybe going to class if it was convenient. And then all of a sudden I'm in a suit and tie driving in rush hour Los Angeles traffic to my 27th floor office downtown LA. And, that was a tragic point in my life because that was not my destiny. No offense to those who are pursuing an accounting career with the world's large firms and all that offers. But I knew right away on the first day of work, I said, what the F am I doing here, man? I was in a basement of a hotel getting orientation training, and everyone around me's got big smiles, and they're opening to page 37 to look at the 401k vesting program. After 10 years, you get this many percent. And after 20 years, you get a 57% match. And everyone's smiling, going thumbs up around the room. And I'm like, folding a triathlon magazine inside the binder so I can, keep awake during the orientation. But when I had that strong sense that I was heading down the wrong path, and I was finally able to get up the courage to announce my retirement to my boss, that I was going to pursue a career as a professional triathlete, which was a total whim. That was 11 and a half weeks after I was hired. So my accounting career lasted 11 weeks, pretty miserable the whole time. Just because, it was nice people to work with and all that for the most part, not all of them. But, I knew I was in the wrong spot, wrong direction. So the tension and the pressure built up. And then the day I walked out of the office upon my retirement was another wonderful day because I knew I had, open roads in front of me. And I got on my bike and started training really hard and swimming in the swimming pool and learning from good coaches and meeting new training partners that were on the same path as me. And we were so excited and inspired. And Andrew McNaughton's one of them. He's a frequent guest on my podcast and one of the great triathletes of all time. He had a great career back in the 80s and 90s and still coaching and setting records in the 50 plus division. So we were together on this journey from the very start. And it was a wonderful experience to go out there and compete against the top guys and get better and better and better. And I progressed quickly with my triathlon career and my very first year, my rookie year, at the last event of the season, I upset the top ranked guys in the world. These two top ranked guys that were, number one in duathlon, Kenny Souza, number one in triathlon, Scott Molina, and I came out of nowhere, out of the back of the pack, and just had this really steady race on a really tough course. And so I got all this attention and recognition, but I reached this point where I was able to compete against the top guys in the world by doing it my way and not listening to the measuring, judging forces of the outside world. Because if I had, I might have quit the sport because I wasn't good enough to really dream of doing that. I was way behind when I started, but in a single year of just making steady progress and comparing my results only to myself and only to the previous week. So I'd come home from these races and I'd take 17th and I was 7 minutes behind, and of course not winning any money, and dedicating my career instead of this wonderful track on the accounting scene in the business world to this nothing approach where I was frittering away my college degree. But I was so excited because I'd improved from 24th in the previous race to 17th. And I was, charting down the split times between the swim and the bike and the run and seeing where I could gain some more improvement, and then making another leap and taking 12th in the next race and then working my way up. And so this explosive performance at the end where I came out of nowhere, it really wasn't coming out of nowhere. It was doing things the right way, being motivated for the right reasons, having what I call a pure motivation. So a pure motivation is when you're motivated by the pure love of the activity and the journey, as opposed to being extrinsically motivated, like I want to do triathlon so I can make a lot of money, because I was making zero money and putting a lot of money on the table when I was leaving the accounting track. But that pure motivation is what, made me make the right decisions every single day. So if I woke up and I was tired, or I had a sore throat, or something didn't feel right in my knee, I'd just rest, or I'd do a different sport. And I wasn't worried about sticking to some regimented pattern and reporting to some coach who was doing strange coach athlete dynamics where they're judging me, subversively, and I'm getting involved in weird stuff. I was just having fun, enjoying myself, and that allowed me to reach the highest level of performance in the world with these guys that I'd only dreamed about competing against a year prior.
That's fantastic. And how about your kids? Have you found that you're able to get them to this space at an earlier age than you were able to find?
Yeah, my kids are college age, right? So as a parent, both their mom and I, we're committed to these high ideals and values of parenting. Like, we want our kids to be naturally motivated to study hard and succeed in school. We don't want to put pressure on them, things like that. And I've always had this voice in the back of my head, like trying to stick to those morals and ideals. And then you get thrust into real life and you realize, man, we're in the age of the helicopter parent today. And if you kind of just let your kid fend for themselves, they might get their ass kicked in certain ways by the overbearing parents who are editing their essays to college heavily so they can get the highest evaluations, or making sure that they get straight A's by breathing down their neck every night to make sure they're doing their homework. And, well, what about chapter 2 in Spanish? That kind of thing goes on every day, and it's very disturbing to me. It doesn't feel right. My parents had very little intervention. All they did was offer me unconditional love and support for me to find my own way, including failing over and over. So I'm really trying hard to stay in that space at all times and just be like the caddy, carrying the bag for my kid and playing whatever course they want to play. And I think it's, it's gone pretty well, because yesterday we had a great day and a great visit, right? And so who's judging what? And I tell my kids this all the time, like, guess what? The world has enough freaking doctors. There's enough lawyers. There's enough accountants. There's enough congressmen and senators. And there's enough entrepreneur whiz tech kids making $1 zillion. All those things are covered. We don't need you to, ascribe to these, values and judgments of society. So what can be your highest contribution? Who knows what it is? Maybe it's not a high income earning position where the parents can be proud of their kid. And I read this article called The Inverse Power of Praise in New York Times. You can search it. It was a 2007 article, and it changed my life about parenting. I read it over and over. I've sent it to probably 100 people by now. But it talks about how saying innocuous statements like, I'm proud of you, to your child for your graduating college or graduating high school or doing something spectacular in the athletic realm. When you say, I'm proud of you, you are all of a sudden taking it away from the kid and turning it into a kid performing like a show pony for the amusement and the pleasure of the parent. So you could perhaps consider reframing that statement to, you should be proud of yourself. You played a great game and hit that buzzer beater to knock them out of the playoffs. You can be excited and all that, but you might want to come from this space of, you should be proud of yourself for how hard you worked and what you accomplished. And that's a huge difference in psychological impact to the child, because the child is so used to the measuring forces of the world, and hearing these voices that, one time my daughter mentioned that she didn't want to go to a crappy college blank in the state of California. And I'm like, who says that's a crappy college? Did you know that some of the world's leading experts in my field study from there and publish papers? But, it's known as a party school, let's say, versus the Ivy League is known as prestigious colleges, right? Well, guess what? I visited my sister at one of the Ivy League schools and saw kids, shit-faced drunk walking down the hall, just like you see at, the routine party school. So, anything can happen anywhere. And a college student that sits at the front row, for you guys listening, if you're in college listening to the show, if you go to your routine commuter junior college and go sit in the front row and are rapt and excited about what the teacher has to say and go up afterward and have a 12-minute, one-on-one conversation, you are getting just as good an education as those kids are getting on the green grass at Stanford. I promise you that. especially if those kids are shit-faced drunk trying to stagger their way across the green grass to the ivy-covered walls, you know?
Yeah. So would you say that you believe in a philosophy of like figuring out what you love to do and then going down that path and, looking at yourself as the person that is, I don't want to say judging, but like you're self-contained as far as like, I did good because of this, or like I'm proud of myself. I don't need any externals.
Yeah, I guess you can possibly get into trouble that way and be the surfer dude that just wants the glassy waves and has 7 credit cards maxed out on debt, right? So if we have this mentality that we're just trying to be happy and pursue pleasure all the time, we might invite a lot of pain and suffering accordingly. And I can look back at times where I was, let's say, lying to myself about my values and ideals. And, that creates a lot of pain and suffering. One example is when I was a triathlete, I would tell my sponsors and whoever would listen, my friends and supporters, that, yeah, my goal is to be #1 in the world and I want to win the championships. And boy, my whole life was directed towards success in triathlons, and I wanted very, very badly to do well. And I was a very tough racer on the race course. So if you and I were tied with a few miles to go on the running course, even if I was tired, even in the hot weather in the Caribbean with the sun beating down, I was going to drop your ass or do everything I could and be willing to collapse at the finish to gain a place in the ranking. But to say that you want to be the best in the world at something, most people do not want to make the sacrifices necessary, or they're not capable of making the sacrifices necessary. I just read a blog post from Seth Godin about this, where he says, strive to be the best in the world, define your world. So your world might be, I want to be the best dry cleaner in the entire Toledo metropolitan region. And so that's your world, and you go for it and you do whatever it takes and you focus on that. But generally, I sense that a lot of us are telling the right story and saying that they want to, get accepted to a prestigious law school, but they're out there shit-faced drunk staggering across the green lawn to the ivy-covered wall. So they're not really committed to what they just said they were committed to. And in my case, like, I wanted to enjoy my triathlon journey, enjoy my time traveling and competing on the professional circuit, do the very best I could. I wanted to do it my way, but to say point blank, I want to be the best in the world no matter what. I saw those guys that were the best in the world, and I was, 1.7 levels down below their level of commitment and drive and intensity. And I just want to admit that to myself, that I was the guy that eventually, my best year, I made it to #3 ranking in the world. And I'm very proud of that. You can be proud of me if you want. Oh, excuse me. You should tell me that I'm proud of myself, right? Okay, now we're back on track. But, that was like me realizing my ultimate potential. But it's like, how does that person jump 2 spots? Maybe it wasn't in the cards for me. Maybe I didn't have the genetics and all that. But also, maybe I didn't have the ability to focus and let my phone bill go unpaid because I couldn't lift a finger to write a check and stick it in the mail, because one #1 ranked athlete that I train with lived a life of such intense focus and singular direction that he let his phone go and went off the hook one day. I mean, it didn't work one day. And the reason was because he didn't pay the bill because he's too busy training. And I'm like, dude, the reason it got unplugged is you didn't pay your bill. Oh, okay. Yeah, shoot. I'll try to remember that next time. But, the focus level was so high with some of the best athletes in the world that I was associated with and trained around, that I realized that that wasn't in the cards for me. And so now we can kind of unfold a different journey. And you asked me questions about my kids, which is great, because I'll tell my kids point blank, like, oh, you want to make $1 million zillion so you can live like the Bachelorette and have her casita when she goes on vacation that's $750 a night at the resort. If that's important to you, then let me walk you through some of those steps and some of those decision-making strategies to where you're sacrificing so much that maybe it doesn't seem all that it's cracked up to be, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great transition though into you are number one in the world at something, which is speed golf. So first, I would love to hear the explanation of what speed golf is, because having, I'd heard about it before, and then as we'd been interacting, I'd had people tell me that, you were the speed golf champion. So I was intrigued, and I'm like, well, golf could be more interesting to me if there was actually something faster about it. So I think it's really cool. So I would love to hear, what is speed golf, and then how did you make it to being the best in the world at this particular speed golf category? And did you have to make extra sacrifices that you weren't willing to make before in your triathlon career?
I'm so glad you asked that question, Joe, because I'd be much more embarrassed if I just brought it up myself, which I usually find my way of doing. You know, I'm at a party, and my fiance will like walk across the room. She's talking to someone else and come over, and what are you guys talking about? Oh, speed golf. How'd we get on that? I don't know. It just happens. I just land there as a default setting. So this wonderful sport of speed golf has been around for a long time. It's kind of a grassroots, low-key sport with not a strong following, but we do gather every year for a world championship, and there's maybe 50 to 100 players. Maybe 30 of them identify as pros, and the rest are playing on a recreational level. But it's been a fascination of mine for a long time, because my family's sport is golf, and I was raised in the golfing scene. But then, lo and behold, I became an endurance athlete. So to put those two and two together, it's a lot of fun. And so just clarify out of the gate, like I broke this Guinness World Record for this offshoot little event, which was the fastest single hole of golf played. It has to be a 500 yard, so it's a long distance, like a par 5 hole, and they have an official Guinness World Record. But the sport of speed golf and the tournament level play is a whole different story. And I'm more like a 20th ranked guy in the world professional circuit. I've been in the last 4 world championships, 20th, 19th, and 17th. So I'm one of the guys out there that's, competitive, but the best guys are, real champion level golfers that can shoot par on a championship course in about 45 to 50 minutes total, playing 18 holes on foot, carrying 5 or 6 clubs. And so they're hitting great shots, running at a fast pace, and finishing the entire round in less than an hour. So the way we compete in this sport is you count your strokes and your minutes, and you add them together, and that's your speed golf tournament score. So for example, if I go out there and shoot an 80, and it takes me 50 minutes to play the course, that's a speed golf score of 130.
Wow.
Yeah, so my best score in tournament, I shot a 78 in the California Championships in 47 minutes. So 78 plus 47 is 125. So that's my best tournament score. I got 3rd place in the California Pro Championships in 2017, and I'm working toward breaking through to a higher level and competing against these guys that are shooting even par. But then I discovered on YouTube this viral video about the Guinness record for the fastest golf hole. And it was a really great experience, because this aligned up with my passion for sprinting, and it was something where I could use that, that real athleticism and just go for this one-off record where it doesn't even matter your score on the hole. They're just timing you to how long it takes to finish a hole that's of the required length of 500 yards. So I went through this whole elaborate process of applying to Guinness and waiting 12 weeks for approval, and then 20 weeks for the ratification after you make your attempt. And when you make your attempt, you have to have like 10 people there. You have to have 2 timers, 2 official witnesses that you never met before, a photographer, a filmographer to film it, to take still photos, and you have to submit all this evidence and make sure everything was legit according to the very tight Guinness guidelines. So for me, like, the whole experience was bringing me back decades before to when I was this, intense professional triathlete that, would have these races, and being on the circuit was a big deal. It was like my life, and now I'm just an ordinary guy trying to stay fit and healthy. But the build up to make this record attempt was really fun for me, because I realized the tremendous importance of maintaining a competitive intensity throughout your life, whatever it is. It could be for the annual, beer pong tournament or the 3-on-3 basketball with your college buddies, but you have to have these goals and this progression toward a peak performance event to keep that competitive intensity going, because it has so many benefits to bring out the best in you, to keep you motivated, and just to keep you on edge rather than just being a spectator. Because generally our experience, Joe, and our guys, you're in your 30s, I'm in my 50s, we did whatever we did back in the day, quote unquote, back in the day. Yeah, I played a little ball back in the day. Yeah, I got a cup of coffee at the single A level in baseball. I was drafted, didn't work out. I bummed my shoulder out. You hear this everywhere you go from the male athletic specimen. And then what are we doing now? We're watching a stupid ass Super Bowl for 4 hours of, crappy football, crappy commercials, and, wasting our lives sitting on the couch watching other people perform, rather than doing something, whatever it is that aligns nicely with your current lifestyle and your responsibilities as a parent, your career person, partner, all that stuff. So for me to have this outlet of speed golf, it's been a wonderful experience. I talk about it a lot on my podcast. For those willing to listen, I'll do a whole show about how I broke the record in speed golf. Not that anyone is going to go, take my speed golf advice and go implement it, but just to have something magical to go after and set a goal and try for it, I think is valuable for everyone. So that's what I want to kind of convey when we happen to be talking about this weird thing that I do, but the message applies to everyone, that it's great to go out there and challenge yourself.
Well, I think that the message is fantastic. And I want to dig more into the actual sport of speed golf though, because can you just go to any course and play speed golf?
So it's not the most social of sports, right? Golf is very social. You chit chat for 4 hours out there. You have potato chips, pretzels, beer, whatever, cigar at the end. So speed golf, what we're doing is in the tournament, we're starting at intervals, time trial, like you see on the Tour de France. So every 5 minutes, a player tees off. So I'm going to tee off, and in 5 minutes, I'm on the third hole, man. I'm on the third green in 5 minutes. I play the whole course in 45 minutes, right? So it's a very fast-moving tournament scene, but it's one at a time, because you don't want to hit some fool in the head if you're, 30 seconds faster than him. So you can't play together in speed golf if you're in a competitive setting. You can go and practice and jog with your buddy and wait a little while he finds his ball, and then you keep going. But mainly it's like I go out there solo style, and I either go right before dark when there's nobody, especially on the first holes of the course, or first guy in the morning. Not second guy, not third guy, because I'm going to disturb real golfers, and I don't want to, we don't want to mix and offend golfers who are out there to have a good time and take their time. So it's you can't have anyone around when you're playing speed golf, because the pace of play is so fast. And you only take 5 clubs, right, or 6 clubs. So what happens is you have to create and invent all these interesting new shots, because you're not used to playing. You don't have all 14 clubs like a typical golfer. And so it gives you more, you get more into the intuitive and the feel part of the sport, where it's not perfect. You can't check the wind and your yardage and take 3 practice swings like we see on TV. And those guys, the pros, amazing athletes. I just saw them live in Los Angeles. Tiger Woods up close and personal is something everybody should try to do before, as a bucket list item. But these guys set a bad example for the average golfer. The average golfer is not good enough to waste all that time pondering a shot. You should get up to the ball and frickin' swing and try to make contact in the middle of the club and see where it goes. Doesn't even matter what club you're using, because you're not good enough to choose between a 7 and an 8 iron. So we're trying, in the speed golf community, we're trying to revolutionize the sport and say, look, hit the ball, run after it, do it again, get a workout out there instead of a non-workout. And just like you said, now it appeals to you because you're going to go off the course and have a great workout rather than been sitting on your butt on a cart all day.
Heck yeah, it appeals to me. I would love to do that rather than play a normal game of golf, unless I've been like totally, beat myself up the last few days and I'm doing it as like a recovery fun thing. But are there courses that are doing this? Is there anybody out there that's picking this up and saying like, oh, we're a speed golf course, and you can just kind of like go and, get a tee time and get ready to go? run?
Well, there's a great national organization now. There's been for a while, people have banded together and tried to promote it all over the world, really. So, there's representatives from Japan, Iceland, Sweden, Germany, New Zealand coming together at these world championships and taking the sport back to their own country and putting on tournaments. So we have a nice grassroots effort. And then there's supportive golf courses around town, like the place where I broke the Guinness World Record, Bing Maloney in Sacramento. They know me. They know what I'm all about. When I show up first thing in the morning, they're like, all right, get out there, man. You're first. And you got open roads ahead of you. But generally, you have to be sensitive to the prevailing mode of the sport. And so we're just trying to squeeze in whenever we can. And, if you're first thing out there, what are they going to say if you're going fast? There's not a lot of complaining, but when I'm going right before dark, I'm literally going 15 minutes before sunset and playing 15 minutes after sunset, and there I am with 9 holes. So that works out fine. It's very time efficient sport. And then the other part of it I should mention is when you're in this mode, you kind of lock into that flow state that the athletes talk about so much, because you don't have time to overanalyze and get into that stressful mindset where you're ruminating on your previous bad shot, or you're thinking about the shot so much that you tense up and you make a bad stroke. This way you're just in the flow all the time. And so you find yourself, most of the players in the tournament find themselves playing as good or better than when they take forever with all their clubs and all their advantages and their radar finder that says 157 yards, because that stuff, except for a top level pro, it can often mess up the average golfer. Even a practice swing can mess up the average golfer, because they go from the flow state into their analytical state and say, oh yeah, left wrist, don't bow it as much on the backswing, and then drive that left knee first before. And you cannot hit a ball and swing a club 100 miles an hour with all these thoughts in your head. You have to react to it. And so this gets us into that wonderful reactive mode that it's hard to capture if you're playing slowly. I have trouble playing slowly. It takes too long, and I think too much. And, I have to kind of get back to the fast stuff to recalibrate.
I think it's awesome. I want to try it. And so are you holding on to 5 clubs as you're running, or do you have a bag, or like, how does that work?
Yeah, mostly you have a little junior bag. So like the kid's bag that's, 5 inches in diameter instead of 12 inches, like the big old hunkin' bags. And you just grab the thing and run down the course. And it's opens up a whole new dimension to the sport, especially for fitness-minded golfers. And, we have our stats on the website, Speedgolf USA, and it says there's 23 million joggers, runners in America, and there's 25 million golfers. And then you draw the concentric circle, right? So they meet in the middle. That means there's probably 5 to 7 million people who have the potential to play speed golf. They have running shoes in their garage and they have a golf bag. So we're waiting for the 5 to 7 million people to come instead of, 50 to 70. But for me, it's something that's, it's a private personal goal, and to compare and contrast to the triathlon scene where, ESPN's filming us, you're getting interviewed, the magazine's there, if you win, you're going to be on the magazine cover, and it's going to be a great accomplishment in life, and you're going to be so full of yourself, and it seems so important and all that. But when I go and have a successful round, first thing in the morning with nobody watching, I have that same sensation, that same sense of accomplishment. I might as well have won a big race on the triathlon circuit with thousands of people clapping for me in the streets as I come across the line. It means nothing different to my heart and my mind and my body. So that way I can kind of keep the dream alive and keep going through life living with passion and competitive intensity.
What's the training like to be a competitive speed golfer?
You got to get used to it, man. That's why, I feel like, some of those guys on the PGA Tour are known as fitness freaks. There's Camilo Villegas, the guy from Colombia. He rides his bike 100 miles and Ricky Fowler's in the gym, and Rory McIlroy, coming out with these impressive physiques. Tiger, was known to run 5 kilometers in training at a fast pace as part of his routine. And then he's going and lifting weights and hitting balls for hours. And so, there's some fit guys out there that could probably run the course pretty well, but I'm going to challenge them right now because I think they'd have a tough time hitting that ball and then running immediately down to hit the next shot because they're so used to the deliberate pace, their brains might fry unless they practice it a bit. So to get good at speed golf, this is from my guru and my mentor, Christopher Smith in Eugene, Oregon. He's the greatest speed golfer of all time. If you search on YouTube, Christopher Smith Speed Golf Bandon Dunes, you will see one of the greatest golf rounds ever played in the history of the planet by anyone. He shot a 4 under par 68 at Bandon Dunes, one of the championship top rated courses in the world, in 53 minutes. And they have a high speed video. So you watch the video for 3 minutes, you can see every shot in his round because it's going dut, 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 dut. But to break par, to be knocking in birdies from all over the place while playing speed golf, it's one of the most beautiful things you've ever seen. It's as good as somebody shooting 59 on the PGA Tour. So you gotta get practice that's specific to the goal that you're pursuing. So you got to go out there and give it a try. And what's cool is like, you can go play 18 holes. You're sitting in the clubhouse having your hot dog, or forget the hot dog. Go out there right before dark if you happen to finish your round late with your usual gang, and go try 3 holes of speed golf. Grab 5 clubs and just see what it feels like to hit the ball and start running. And very quickly, you can get a sense of what it's all about. And knocking these putts with just running up to the green, holding on to the putter, catching your breath for 1 second, and hitting a putt in. It's really funny because you realize that your feel and your natural athletic ability is there beyond what your wildest dreams are, because you're taking so much deliberate time.
Yeah. How old are you again, Brad?
54, man. It feels good. It's I remember someone said, when you say age is just a number, everyone says that. It's like they're campy. Oh, it's just a number. Someone ripped on that one time. They made a really compelling argument. Like, no, it's not. It's bullshit. What? That's like kind of a mouthy thing to say. It's kind of arrogant or whatever. So I'm not going to say that anymore. I'm just going to say I feel great at this age, and I feel like my balance and fitness is far beyond when I was 25 and winning races on the professional triathlon circuit. Because back then I was good for one thing, and that was swimming, biking, and running fast in succession. But if you asked me to help you in your driveway, lift sandbags to block the rainstorm, I'd be sore the next day. I'd have a sore back. Or anything, moving side to side, or just doing fun things in life like water skiing, I'd be sore for a week from doing a couple 3-minute pulls on the water ski, because I didn't have a balanced approach to fitness, and I was tired and always on the edge, always on that red line of breakdown and burnout at all times. Because if I wasn't, that meant some other fool was out there pushing the envelope and trying for breakthroughs where he was going to gain, those incremental advantages on the race course. So you had to constantly push your body to the very limit. Just like all athletes at the very top going for the Olympics, there's not guys that are out there training moderately and feeling breezy good about their workouts. They're going until they're on their hands and knees sometimes, or risking injuries and breakdown at all times, because that's how you get from 27th to 17th to 11th to 4th to first place. You got to take those risks, and you're going to have some fallout from taking huge extreme risks. So now, with a more balanced approach to fitness, going for longevity is one of my top goals, as well as mixing that longevity goal and that health goal with some competitive goals. So I guess I get back to the single hole thing that I did. I had to prepare to just play 1 hole. So I had to play much, much faster and run much, much faster than I'm going to do on an 18-hole speed golf round, where I'm kind of in a tempo mode. I'm going to lay my bag down, take a look at the shot, exhale, grab the club and hit, and then go to the next shot. This thing was like a frenzy. It was like running an all-out 400-meter sprint on the track. I'm going full speed sprint, and then I got to get the stinking ball in the hole 500 yards away. So At first, I have to admit, when I saw the video, there's a gentleman named Steve Jeffs of the United Kingdom, and he's on the Guinness World Record website with this viral video that now has like 163,000 views. It's actually, I have 3,000 of those views, so it's like 160,000 views, right? But he's the guy that first set the record that I was going after. I was so arrogant that as soon as I saw the video, I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to go out there tomorrow and slam this thing, because I can sprint pretty well. I mean, I can still run a 60-second quarter, which is decent. It's moving, and I play speed golf. So I went out the next day to the course, waited till right before dark, found a 500-yard hole, and hit the stopwatch and ran pretty quick and hit the ball pretty well and putted it in the hole. And his record was 1:50, and I looked at my stopwatch and it was 2:12. And I'm like, what the F? I'm 22 seconds behind the record after a pretty decent effort. I tried again a couple days later, and I rushed faster this time. I ran faster, and ran up to the ball and hit it. And I hit a couple bad shots where I had to go get it and hit it back straight. 2 minutes, 13 seconds, even though I was sprinting full speed. So that caused me to embark upon a 5-month research and development project where I had to go out to the course many, many times and try different strategies and try to balance the full sprint with just the right amount of, resting at the ball to execute a good shot. So don't rush too much, but don't waste any time. And so it was different than my speed golf experience, but I got really good at just using one club. So I didn't have to put down or pick up any clubs. I used the same club to hit the ball for every shot, a 3-wood. So that was tough because you can hit a long shot with a 3-wood. You can hit another long shot with a 3-wood. Then you got to hit this delicate chip shot with a 3-wood. Then you got to get up on the green and putt with a 3-wood. So that took months and months of devoted specific practice, which is really important insight for anyone, whatever goal you have. You have to go exactly and simulate the competitive experience. You can hit 100 putts in on the practice green or shoot 50 free throws in a row and make 41 of them. And then when you get on the line during the game, when you're tired and sweaty and coming off a foul, you're going to choke. And you see the college and high school players all the time, because hitting 50 free throws, shooting 50 in a row in a calm, relaxed practice setting does not translate to what you're doing in a competitive setting. So I had to practice over and over playing a single hole really fast with one club. And that was so gratifying when I put it all together twice. I actually broke the record twice, once in Sacramento and once in Los Angeles. So you can look on YouTube, Brad Kearns Speed Golf World Record or something. And this day in Los Angeles, I did 1:38. So I beat the previous record by 12 seconds, my own previous record by 2 seconds, and I got a birdie on the hole. So sprinting full speed as fast as I could, I hit 4 perfect shots and knocked this putt in for a birdie. And I jumped up at the end, and I realized, like, it's one of the greatest things I've ever done as an athlete, because I came through under pressure. Again, I had to enlist, 10 to 12 friends to come out there at the appropriate time and, make this whole ordeal. It wasn't just me practicing over and over and beating the record one time. It had to be a staged, orchestrated event. And so to come through under pressure like that and hit these 4 perfect shots, I'm like, you know what? I don't think I can ever top that, but I'm gonna try again this year. So that was the story of the single hole record. With hopefully, I'm giving insights that can relate to everybody trying different peak performance goals. Is you got to try exactly what you're going for, and instead of kind of this breezy approach where you go in the gym and lift a few weights and then think you're ready for the CrossFit Games.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'd love to hear from you as a 54-year-old athlete, and having been a professional athlete in your 20s. I'm on this journey right now where I'm driving around in a van around the United States, and we pull the weights out of the campground, and I get these retirees that are, I don't know, 60 years old. They, look like they're in okay shape. They're not like, sitting in a couch or be riding their bikes around and whatnot. And they'll always come up and say things like, oh, I couldn't do that. Or like, wait until you're, 60 or whatnot. So how do you feel in this difference? And what do you have to say to people that are listening that are in, their 50s or 60s and, are they wrong? Are we right? Or what do you think?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny you're asking this now, because Mark Sisson and I are deep into this project, working on a book about longevity. And
Cool.
one of the areas of the book is the mental aspects, right? We got to eat our blueberries and our pomegranates and stay away from sugar and grains, and make sure we get enough sleep and get enough exercise. But the mental aspect and the mindset and that association with health and longevity is profound. Listeners have probably heard of the great author and spiritual leader Deepak Chopra. There's another guy named Dr. Bruce Lipton who wrote The Biology of Belief. Chopra's, my favorite book of his is Ageless Body, Timeless Mind. And they are showing, deeply validated science that your perception of longevity and your perception of your state of health and your body will manifest into reality. So if you believe that you are young at heart and young in spirit, and that your body can still work and you can still push yourself with lifting weights in the campground, you will manifest those at a cellular level. As soon as you formulate the thought and send that message into your cells have these receptor switches on them, Dr. Lipton calls them, and they will take a thought and manifest it with a boost of the adaptive hormones like testosterone, growth hormone, things like that. Or conversely, you can think stressful thoughts and spike your cortisol levels and get into the fight or flight state just from thoughts. We all know this as an example, and that is a destructive catabolic experience where if you keep activating the fight or flight response throughout your day and throughout your life, you're going to accelerate the aging process and elicit cellular damage just from your thoughts, just from sitting in a let's say a dark room and thinking that you're getting old and worn out. You will manifest that into reality, and you will also manifest the opposite. So if you send a renewal signal to your genes, to your cells, by picking up a deadlift bar and lifting it for 6 reps, it's in your backyard. Every time you go by, you can do 3 or 4 or 5 sets a day. That's sending a renewal signal to your genes. Dr. Art Devaney used that term. And so when you want to go for renewal, you fast, you spend periods of time not eating, and your cells get good at autophagy. That's the natural cellular detoxification process that occurs when the cells are starved of energy or stressed in a temporary manner, such as lifting a weight, doing a sprint workout, or fasting in the morning. Your cells get good at repair and getting rid of the bad cells, regenerating and growing new healthy cells. And you can actually do this with your thoughts as well as your behavior patterns, your workouts, your sleep, and all that. And it's so discounted. And we go into these speech patterns and these belief systems that we share and exchange, and they're highly destructive. So that person that's 60 years old saying, "Oh, look at this guy with the weights coming out. What a freak. What are you doing over there? I could never do that. Oh, that's for young men to do." He believes that's for young men to do. Therefore, that is his reality. And when he steps up to lift the weight, he's going to be in a negative mindset. He's going to have a negative cellular experience, and he's going to not like it, not want to do it again, et cetera, et cetera. But if you can just formulate a new belief, like every day, and this is some of Deepak offers these aphorisms throughout all his books. Anything you pick up, you can Google him online and look at his quotes. Every day I'm sending a message of youthful vitality to my cells. It sounds like woo-woo stuff if you're not into this scene, if you're not going to Sedona to sit on the vortex and fold your legs up and do some deep breathing. But it has been scientifically validated that sending a renewal message to your cells through your thoughts will actually work, and it'll work right away. You can change your hormonal state. Tony Robbins talks about that. If you freaking force a smile, look in a mirror, move your, extend your jaw muscles so that your mouth is in a smiling shape, you will change your hormonal state immediately, even if you're having a crappy day. So, this stuff is now of great interest to me, especially because we're deep into this book project, thinking that how these things go hand in hand. And hey, if you're out there lifting weights in the campground and you're doing it for whatever reason, whatever motivation you have, you do it and you complete the workout. Do you feel good after?
Heck yeah.
You feel great. And so you made yourself feel great. You're going to say it was because of the workout, but it's also what you thought about the workout. And also the hormonal signals that came from actually picking up the weight and lifting it, where, you know, you're getting a spike of the adaptive hormones. That's going to affect your brain chemicals and the direct association with, you know, testosterone and dopamine, serotonin, and the feel-good chemicals. So when you get a spike of testosterone, for whatever reason it is, maybe it's your female partner. I just had John Gray on my show on Get Over Yourself podcast, and he was talking about how, you know, an appreciative female partner who trusts her man to navigate the roads properly instead of second guessing or saying, can you take care of this? Sure, I can take care of it. I'll be your knight in shining armor, and I'll set up the tent while you're going for a walk over to the stream. You're going to get a spike of testosterone from feeling like an appreciated male partner to your female partner in that generic example, right? And so, you know, with those spikes of hormone levels, your brain chemicals are going to be optimized and you're going to feel fantastic. And it could be, if you forgot the weights or you didn't have time, you could just think about a strength training session and you can still get some hormonal benefits from just thinking about it.
I love it. That's fantastic. So how do you set up these triggers, I'm guessing, in your day in order to embed these thoughts? Do you have a morning routine, a daily routine that someone listening could try and do these things?
Yeah, but if I hear another commentator on winning morning routines, I swear I'm going to puke, Joe. This stuff is getting so overblown now. And back to the title of my podcast, Get Over Yourself. It's like there's too much going down the pipe right now, down mashed into our brains. So I'm a freewheeling, free-spirited guy. I identify with the rebel tendency from Gretchen Rubin's The Four Tendencies. You know, the rebel just kind of doesn't answer to the measuring, judging expectations of the outside world. I'm like, oh crap, that's me. That's what my second and third grade teachers wrote on the progress report. And here I am, kind of not ascribing to the standards of society. So first of all, that means we have to honor ourselves and be okay understanding our basic nature and realizing that you're not going to be that guy who crushes it and writes a best-selling book and goes on a speaking tour and is, you know, so locked in. Jim Collins, the author of Good to Great and those many other best-selling books, he was just on a podcast talking about how he has 3 stopwatches. He has a stopwatch with a triple stopwatch timer in his pocket, and he lives his entire life, every day for 30 years, without fail, without missing a single day. He puts the timer on for which of the 3 categories of behavior he's doing. One of them is productive research and creative work. And that's the big one. He wants to spend half his time in that. The second stopwatch is routine house cleaning matters, like he's doing his spreadsheets or filing his expense report, and the third stopwatch is something else. So his goal, and this is super awesome material, right? I'm totally appreciating what he says. He wants to have 50% of his time in that creative, productive mode, and less, you know, not overwhelming with routine matters of house cleaning or putzing around the house and organizing the bookshelf. So that's a great takeaway. But for me to imagine myself with 3 stopwatches in my pocket every day for 30 years, I'd probably go crazy. It wouldn't work for me. If someone offered me $1 million, maybe I could do it, but I'd probably gag somewhere down the line and miss out on my bonus. So we have to honor our basic nature and do what feels good to ourselves. And I mean, to answer your question honestly, I've been talking about this too. I do this morning routine now that's really been something special for me because I'm such a freewheeling rebel style guy that I'm capable of missing the mark every single day with identifying routines. So now I do some morning flexibility and mobility drills that take about 12 minutes. And it's actually a pretty good workout. I mean, it's, you know, I'm moving my legs, I'm doing some core work, and then I go jump in the chest freezer. So, and you can see that on YouTube, Brad Kearns chest freezer cold plunge and Brad Kearns morning flexibility routine. And this stuff it's been really special to me because I feel proud that I can get something done in a patterned manner, and hopefully that will set me up to be more focused and productive when I'm looking at my computer, and whether I'm going to go jump into email inbox or continue working on this peak cognitive task like finishing a chapter of a book. And that I struggle there. I succumb to digital distractions like we all do. And it's a really huge concern of mine now because 20 years ago, you know, I've been writing for let's say 25 years, pretty hardcore, like writing books and doing major things. Back then when I started, I didn't have an internet connection, you know, I just had a piece of paper, and I was able to go look at my reference materials, go back to writing, look at my reference materials, go for a walk, come back to the computer. You know, that was a simpler, easier day. Now we have little buzzes and beeps and shit going on in the background that can mess with us. And the stats are horrible. I mean, we've done some research about this for the book. Like, the average office worker changes screens, interacts with a different screen, a different tab, whatever, 37 times an hour. And the usual length of time for a peak task on a single task is 3 minutes. Oh my gosh, that's embarrassing to all of humanity, that we're just frittering around, jumping from here to there. And the average YouTube length video, if you want to go viral, it should be 3 to 4 minutes, no longer than that, because we don't have that much attention span. Oh my goodness gracious, that's disastrous. You know, what happened to the art of picking up a great book and reading a 500-page book, you know, once a week? And some of the peak performers still do that, and I honor that, and that's great, and it's something to aspire to. But man, it's a tough life right now with all the digital distractions. So I am going to raise my hand and say, you know what, man, I'm doing pretty good on a morning routine, but it's not 27 steps of, you know, my gratitude journal and my meditation. And, oh, if you say you don't have time for meditation, don't worry, it's only 20 minutes. Only 20 minutes? F you, dude. I do not have 20 minutes, or excuse me, I do not choose to take 20 minutes to meditate every morning. I'm sorry, I'm a loser, but don't stick that in my face like it's a deal breaker, and you're not being all you can be if you can't meditate every morning for 20 minutes. There's another surprise answer from the other 7,000 people that are advocating for a direct linear approach to morning routine.
What do you think that someone can do, though, that to get started, if they're, you know, let's say they're 60 years old, they're retired, they just found they have a lot more time on their hands because they set themselves up to be retired these days. And they're listening to this and they're like, wow, Brad is freaking awesome. How do I be a little bit more like Brad? Do you have any, you know, tips for them to start thinking in this way, to like change this 50, 60 years of patterns that they've built up in order to start getting into, you know, a better shape, a better place in their mind?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I take inspiration from other people, like my reference to Jim Collins, and Ben Greenfield reads a book a week, and Warren Buffett reads for 3 hours a day. So that's great, but I don't want to compare myself to anyone or get into that negative mindset where, you know, I'm not quite good enough. So that's my first thing, is like, you know, don't try to be more like Brad, just try to bring out the best in yourself, right? And yeah, if something sounds good and resonates to you, you know, deep in your heart, like you heard a suggestion, it's like, wow, that would really be beneficial to me. Those are the things to go after. And the other stuff, just junk it, just toss it to the sideline. I mean, and I'm going to take the spirit of the Jim Collins 3 stopwatch rule and apply that in my own personal way, maybe at you know, a 12% level instead of going 100% all in, because I can't do it. But I want to keep in the back of my mind now forever, after hearing that half your time from the world's leading expert on business efficiencies and the efficiencies of human systems. That was his words. Like, that's what he studies, is human systems. Happens to be business because you have a lot of data, but it could be anything. That half your time should be spent in that peak performance productivity mode. That's a pretty big, it seems easy, but it ain't, man. I can validate that I'm frittering around, and the average office worker spends, I think it was it 400 hours? Or no, it's 100 hours a year looking for lost documents, whether physical or digital. 100 hours a year. That's, what is that, 2.5 weeks? So you have a 2.5 week vacation to Hawaii. Every year you're going on vacation for 2.5 weeks if you can just find your crap in your digital or physical workspace. So those kind of things, I want to get to the highest level of functionality there, so I'm not wasting any time, because I know the clock's ticking on my workday. If I can get things done, I get to go out and play speed golf.
Yep, absolutely. And you know, we've been here for, let's see, over an hour now, Brad. And I think that we could keep on talking about this for a lot longer. So hopefully we can have you back on once that book is done and we can talk about some of the things that were in that. But I don't want to take too much more of your time today, so you can get out and go play some of that speed golf. Well, maybe at the end of the day or the start of the day. And how can people find more about you if they want to follow your journey, check out your podcast, all that fun stuff?
Oh, thanks, Joe. Yeah, go visit bradkearns.com, Kearns, and the Get Over Yourself podcast. I think your listeners will dig that, because the vibe that you have going here is really cool, and it's not run of the mill. It's different. It's you. Your personality comes out, and you get the diverse guests, and you peppering in your own insights from your own journey. So it's good entertainment. I think you get a lot of takeaways. We're getting better accordingly, so now we can get better and get over ourselves too. And then what else does anyone need? You can drop off all those world famous podcasts and just lock into these two as your priority every day.
There you go. I love it. Cool. Well, Brad, I appreciate your time, man. And I will talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Joe.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Get Better Project, hosted by Joe Bauer. If you'd like to leave us a podcast review, head over to the getbetterproject.com/iTunes. Now get going and take action on something that will make you better today.